Deltas, marshland, rivers, and flooded wetlands offer refuge to a multitude of wild species. Recognized as vitally important, these great wetland areas play a critical ecological role for the planet. In the water, on land, or high in the canopy, an exceptional array of flora and fauna has taken refuge here. And yet, living in these wetland worlds is a constant challenge. The powerful water cycle reigns over these zones with a relentless hand. In Peru, within the secret of the Amazonian jungle, flora and fauna endure both a rainy season, when water invades everything, and a dry season, when it abruptly retreats. Here, the abundance of life in this vast flooded territory shows that they have developed incredible capacities. On the confines of the Amazon jungle hides a nearly unexplored world. A gigantic virgin forest suspended between water and sky. The Indians named this place the Jungle of Mirrors. We are in the heart of Pacaya Samiria, the largest wildlife reserve in Peru. Framed by the Ucayali and Marañón rivers, this wide wetland takes root at the gates of the Brazilian Amazon. Beneath this thick vegetal mantle, which stretches more than 2 million hectares, hide myriads of rivers, lagoons, lakes, and waterways, either constant or semi-permanent. They form a complex hydraulic network in the shape of a funnel. Every second, 30,000 cubic meters of water flows through it, giving life to the mightiest river in the world, the Amazon. Pacaya Samiria is the mainspring of the entire Amazonian basin. A veritable wildlife jewel box. The animals have spread out on every floor of this ombrophilous forest. 330 species of birds, 69 types of reptiles, and 130 species of mammals live here. Among them, the two biggest apes in America, the woolly monkey and the Atelli monkey, also known as the spider monkey. This forest also houses emblematic species like the tamandua, a small arboreal anteater, and the peaceful capybara, the world's largest rodent. And still others, straight out of prehistoric times, have taken up residence here, like the caiman or the hoatzin. This bird, which came into existence more than 18 million years ago, is considered the oldest still living. Every one of these species has defied time and learned to overcome the devastating effects of the capricious floods that impact this land. Fueled by the streams that descend from the Andes and 5 months of abundant rains, the Amazon's reservoir is filled to the brim. It's the end of April, the very beginning of the dry season, which will continue until September. This year, the floodwaters reached a record level. They invaded 65,000 square kilometers of forest and gained higher grounds, which are generally spared. If the waters don't recede soon, these trees will spend too long with their feet in water and rot. The floods complicate everyday life for many species, and most particularly for the sloth. This one has exhausted his tree's food reserves, so it's time to conquer another one. But he's too heavy to jump from branch to branch, and less agile than the woolly monkeys. To move from one tree to another, the sloth normally prefers a land route, but at the moment, the only alternative is to dive in. Not an easy decision to make, because flooding has allowed predators to desert the lakes and rivers and take possession of the forest. 3 species of caimans patrol between the tree trunks. Schools of piranhas have also extended their hunting grounds. But the uncontested master of this realm is the boa constrictor, the anaconda. 5 meters long, weighing 200 kilos, it can even take on caimans. Completely amphibious, he spends most of his time in the water, lying in wait. Lucky for this sloth, the world's largest snake can make do with only 1 meal a year. Yet navigating in these waters where the temperature is 25 degrees Celsius is no picnic. Every hectare of this engulfed jungle collects 154 tons of leaves a year. Beneath this thick carpet of vegetal material, predators know how to make themselves imperceptible. The sloth isn't used to so much exertion. His body temperature has plummeted. His meager diet means he can't store much energy, nor does it provide him with much autonomy. He's exhausted. To save energy, sloths normally sleep up to 14 hours a day, a schedule that ranks them among the biggest sleepers in the animal kingdom. For their part, spider monkeys have no reason to set foot on solid ground. Evolution has blessed them with outsized appendages that can stretch in a spectacular fashion to easily maneuver in the canopy. Their prehensile tail allows them to wrap around branches and remain firmly attached. To handle the threats of this territory in perpetual mutation, animals have learned to watch for changes in the water cycle. Caimans, anacondas, and piranhas will soon find themselves without a home in the forest. Water levels are receding. Early June, the new inclination of the sun has brought a slight drop in the temperature and a noticeable decline in rainfall. giant otters are on the lookout. With the quickening retreat of the waters, their hidey hole is no longer protected from the caimans. The mirror jungle empties. It's no longer fed by the Andean streams that have drained at lightning speed. The arachnids and other invertebrates that had found refuge above ground can at last touch down on terra firma. Henceforth, the roles inverse. While the scorpions, scolopendras, and tarantulas explore their new domain, it's aquatic species that are now in danger. In high parts of the forest, fish that didn't reach the big rivers in time find themselves trapped. Dwindling ponds run dry. They are no longer linked to the rest of the Pacaya Cimeria's water network. Forest streams taper off. The river's branches that have run dry now offer no exit to the piranhas, condemned to die of asphyxia. Carrion birds wait patiently for the ebb to take its course before tucking in at a full-service feast. This is just an appetizer. Less vulnerable than fish, caimans can always walk from one water hole to the next before gaining the perpetual lakes and rivers. But nothing is ever simple here. Every year, every hectare of this submerged jungle collects more than 150 tons of leaves. The accumulation of leaves and branches blocks the retreats of the caimans to the wide tea-colored rivers, where the fish have concentrated en masse. And they aren't the only ones. The pink dolphins also come to the rendezvous. They know that this is the season of plenty. In these waters, loaded with decomposing vegetation, the dolphins will soon hunt for the 3 kilos of fish necessary to their survival. Their streamlined form is ideally suited for navigating the borders of these waterlogged forests. Long humerus bones give them extraordinarily agile fins, and independent cervical vertebrae allow them to move their heads in any direction. The otters also take advantage of these easy pickings brought by the backflow. They can once again sprawl the length of their 2 meters on the beaches and peacefully return to their favorite activity, sunbathing. The otters share this territory with the world's biggest rodent. The capybara is also perfectly adapted to the semi-aquatic life this habitat imposes. During the dry season, the passing time promises to bring enormous changes. Inexorably, the mirrored jungle dries up, losing its reflective sparkle and brilliance. Late July, Pacaya Cimeria's vast water reserves have emptied. Who could imagine that only a month ago, this forest was submerged under more than 10 meters of water? Of the dissipated streams, only heaps of rotting leaves and humus remain. Watermarks left on tree trunks are the sole indication of the extent of the flooding. In the damp undergrowth, a straggler strikes out in search of a new aquatic refuge. The anaconda is as comfortable on land as in water, but prefers the depth's discretion to this unstable world that towers above him. Because the forest is suffering. Humidity gnaws at the plants of the intermediary zone that spent too long underwater. These trees are more fragile than those implanted on higher ground, as they are less exposed to flooding. Neither are they as well adapted as trees accustomed to living near the banks. It's a risky period for the anaconda. The woolly monkeys know that venturing near these agonizing trees is perilous. But during the dry season, the shortage of fruits forces them to travel greater distances in search of young leaves or a few flowers. These agile funambulists have learned to be wary of their host environment. They are attentive to the forest's slightest rumble. The anaconda was able to get back to his element. His body moves with greater ease in the realm of tortoises, piranhas, and caimans. This is also where the arapaima lives, the world's largest freshwater fish. It can measure more than 3 meters long. It was to save this species that this wildlife reserve was created. But a victim of overfishing, today it is endangered. Head of the Laboratory of Genetic and Molecular Biology for the Peruvian Amazon, Carmen Rosa Garcia Davila is a specialist on preserving the arapaima, which is called a paiche here. Aided by local fishermen, she frequently instigates awareness campaigns.
The paiche is a species that has evolved very little. It has a semi-pulmonary breathing system. It breathes air, just like we do. It's a symbolic species for the Amazon. As a predator, it helps maintain the balance of the ecosystem. It controls the proliferation of other fish. Without a predator like the paiche, there would be an abundance of prey, which would overwhelm this environment.
If this natural reserve is one of the rare, unspoiled ecosystems on the planet, its future is now in jeopardy. The region is threatened by strong demographic pressures. Settled on the outskirts of this wild paradise, humans covet its riches without taking into account the fragility and the importance of this territory, which nourishes our planet's largest green lung. Fishing quotas have become stricter, and only the ancient native Kokama-Kokamia tribe has authorization to fish here. The paiche is the fruit of 5 million years of evolution, a symbol of the stunning multitude of species this inundated world shelters. The black caiman, Amazonia's largest predator, which appeared in its current form in the Jurassic period, is a veritable living fossil. The same can be said for the giant manta ray and the astonishing leaf turtle, species that were born 100 million years ago. All have perfectly adapted to this extreme environment. In the course of evolution, the mata-mata turtle has equipped itself with a very unique camouflage outfit. It renders the animal invisible among the leaves that line the floor of the mirrored jungle. Though these endemic species of the Amazonian basin have vanquished many, many challenges, they become terribly vulnerable.
The paiche exists since the end of the Tertiary era. With the uplift of the Andes, there was a reorganization of rivers. This is how the Amazon was born, as well as the various rivers where the paiche is still living. Pressure from fishing has provoked a significant drop in its population in Amazonia. For this reason, the International Treaty of Species added the paiche to the CITES Red List of threatened species.
More than 250 species live here, the largest diversity of freshwater fish in the world. Yet every year, at the end of summer, the acceleration of the receding waters wreaks havoc. In August, at the height of the dry season, when the streams and small lakes have disappeared, carrion birds flock to the heart of the forest. Vultures can at last take a seat in the front row of these muddy puddles, where they no longer need to fear the caimans. To enjoy this banquet, they must simply watch out for the voracity and bites from their fellow diners. end of August, after 4 months with no rain, the forest suffocates. Feeding is now easy in these waterways where the fish have taken refuge. But the giant otters are worried. The receding water reveals the entrance to their dens. Their family is vulnerable. But nothing escapes the giant otter. Thanks to the position of its nostrils, eyes, and ears on the same plane, this amphibious creature easily adapts to the variations of its environment. The beaches that have reformed welcome stunning butterfly ballets. They've come to take advantage of the surge in mineral salts. By sipping the muddy water, then filtering it before it's evacuated through the anus, they collect in their hindgut the amount of salt they need. Unfortunately, the warmth of the bank attracts more than just butterflies. The warning cries work. The caiman normally counts on the element of surprise. Not this time. In this great wetland, wild fauna must constantly adapt to an unstable environment, where from one season to another, everything can turn upside down. Water levels along the banks and the depths of lakes and streams can range from 10 meters to a few centimeters. The width of the rivers can vary radically from 150 to 50 meters. While trees in the intermediary zones are extremely sensitive to these changes, those that live near the banks have developed effective adaptive strategies. With its airborne stilt-like roots, the Pona palm can fearlessly take on the capricious ebbs and flows of the shore. The Indians have named it the walking palm because its long ramifications enable it to walk, so to speak. In case of a hard blow, like another tree falling and knocking it over, its long roots means it can right itself further along. This year, the floodwaters didn't spare the big trees along the banks. Water has weakened their roots. When they fall, the most damaged take other chlorophyll giants down with them. It's in this chaos that the forest regenerates. Beneath this screen of greenery, where only 2% of the sun's light hits the ground, sickened trees thus make room for the light that is indispensable to the development of new growth. Decomposing material will nourish and strengthen young shoots. In this jungle, life and death are intimately linked. Nothing is lost. Everything is recycled. It's not only seeds and young shoots that benefit from the massacre. It's also a windfall for the leafcutter ant. In just 48 hours, they can strip a fallen tree, cutting it and transporting it in pieces inversely proportional to their size. This harvest of vegetation serves as an organic booster for the mushrooms they cultivate and feed on. This frenetic behavior is a sign. The dry season is at its apex. If time seems suspended over the mirror jungle, nothing lasts forever. The rains will soon return. Late September, the earth and the sky will unite once more and give birth to the deluge. The heavy rain season, which lasts until the month of April, corresponds to the sun's zenith. The animals have learned to be wary of these violent downpours. And the sirens of the Amazon are not exempted. Their sonar means they can navigate in these muddy rivers. They can also find themselves trapped by the tons of debris carried by the flooding rivers. Every year, an average of more than 3 meters of water pour down on the region. This time around, the unprecedented flooding has surprised even the Kokama-Kokamiyas, the Indians who've lived for generations on the border of the park. In this wetland world, the tamandu manages just fine under the extreme conditions he finds himself in. Unlike his cousin the giant anteater who lives on the ground, this little one has become arboreal. His claws and powerful tail allow him to roam effortlessly in the trees. He'll take advantage of nightfall to hunt the thousands of insects that spring to life then. Nourished by 3 months of driving rain, the lakes fill up and the lagoons reunite. In December, the downpours intensify. The main tributary of the Amazon, the Ucayali River, has traveled 2,670 kilometers from the Andes to join forces with the Marañón, the other main hydrological source of the mighty river. Their discharge will mingle with that of the Pacaya and Samiria rivers. In January, this vast wetland regains its excessive nature. More than 6 million hectares are again flooded. Turtles and anaconda rediscover the full extent of their underwater kingdom. They no longer have trouble moving freely from lake to river or stream because they are now all one and the same. The rays, piranhas, and turtles are again scattered in this gigantic watery labyrinth, where the anaconda knows how to keep a low profile. When he spots a prey, only part of his head remains above the surface. His eyes and nostrils, positioned on the top of his head, allow him to breathe and keep watch, while his sizable body remains hidden underneath the water. Fish have again taken refuge in the inextricable trellis formed by the roots of the walking palm, where dolphins can't reach them. In these rivers and lakes, transformed into a freshwater ocean, conditions have changed for the cetaceans. The pink dolphins and the gray dolphins have had to federate in an effort to more effectively herd the scattered fish. In these reservoirs bursting from their banks, the absence of a current encourages the proliferation of water hyacinth. This boat, that heads deep into a maze of canals, takes Handy Vicera to his terrain of study. This biologist participates in the National Inventory of Aquatic Species in this sector, placed under protection by Peruvian authorities.
Hi, I'm Andy Vicera, a biologist.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Good afternoon.
Do you often come to this area to fish?
Yes, it's a perfect spot for fishing.
Could you help me with my study?
No problem. I'd like to know a bit more about what's going on here, about the fishing and the environment.
– 23 centimeters and 180 grams.
What are these measurements for?
We're trying to get some statistics about fishing, the amount which is consumed by each family of fishers. We also want to get an inventory of the local wild fauna so we can estimate the populations of fish, birds, reptiles, and mammals, like monkeys, for example.
Okay, fine.
It's work that should benefit everybody, and especially people who live on this reserve. Do you fish for a lot of piranhas here?
No, hardly at all.
Okay. Thanks for your help. Goodbye.
Okay, bye, thanks.
Awareness campaigns put in place by the government are starting to bear fruit. Poaching has significantly dropped, and those who live in the reserve are becoming conscious of the value of their environment. Since the month of October, the sky hasn't stopped raining down on the region. In April, the mirrored jungle has rediscovered its brilliance. Smooth, immense, and unfathomable. Near the end of the rainy season, the navigable territory for amphibious and aquatic animals is almost limitless. Just like the dolphins, the otters are on a diet. They too must form alliances in an attempt to catch the fish that weave between the tree trunks. In this forest that hovers over copper-hued waters, everyone is settled back into their place. Quenched by 6 months of intense rains, the forest offers its flowers and buds to myriad insects come out of hiding. In the intermediary branches, the tamandu, exhausted by his evening stroll, is heading to bed. Higher still in the canopy, primates, toucans, and parrots will enjoy this season when the fruit is abundant. It's time for the singular monk fruit to make an appearance. Highly appreciated for the delicacy of its flesh, it has practically disappeared from this part of Amazonia. The discreet brown capuchins have colonized a branch of a giant laden with gifts. They'll enjoy these Brazil nuts for several weeks. Extremely agile and clever, they completely master the art of shelling them. The temperature will soon hit 35 degrees, with a humidity level nearing 90%. Not enough to discourage the thick-furred woolly monkeys, impatient to partake of these fruits they've done without for several months. These aerial artists can reach the most inaccessible places, their tail wrapped firmly around branches. Monkeys play an important role in the renewal of the primary tropical forest. The trees take advantage of the mobility of the primates, which disseminate seeds contained in their excrement. And they aren't the only gardeners in this forest. Certain fish can also disperse grains up to 5 kilometers away. The mirrored jungle is a precious and complex ecosystem where each element, each creature, even the tiniest, are intimately linked. Like the sloth. When he slips into the water and moves to a new tree, he collects surprising benefits. Microalgae stick to his rough fur where they grow and give it this green tint. When he licks himself to clean his fur, he eats the algae rich in carbohydrates and fats. These nutrients naturally supplement his low-energy diet. In this universe of water and chlorophyll, many unexpected interactions take place. The mirror jungle is a precious and complex ecosystem in which the water cycle plays an essential role. When it inverses in the month of May, the water carries great quantities of limin, beneficial to the growth of the flora. Stirred by the current, clay and humus in suspension will deposit on the forest floor of the temporarily flooded Pacaya Samiria, and further downstream as well. Carried 200 kilometers from here, these nutrient-rich currents will feed the Amazon. In turn, the powerful flooding river will distribute them and fertilize the largest primary forest in the world. Is the diversity of flora as rich. 1 square kilometer can contain up to 90,000 tons of living plant matter. The Pacaya cimmeria doesn't only play a vital role in the balance of the Amazon basin. Of all natural environments, tropical jungles are among those which absorb the most carbon dioxide. What happens in the fragile mirrored jungle will thus impact the entire planet.